Hey everyone, this is Lomi. Last week we made these cute little lace undies, and today we're going to be making a cute lacy top to go with them. There's no pattern for this, so it can be adapted to fit any doll. I wasn't totally happy with how the ribbons on the shoulders of this one looked, so I'm gonna remake it. To make this, you'll need some stretch lace like we used last week. You'll want a pretty narrow piece, so I'm going to be cutting mine down the middle again, along this seam. Then you'll need some elastic. This is 1/4 inch elastic that's pretty strong, but what I'm going to be using for this project is this ruffle edge elastic that's meant for undergarments. You can get this online pretty inexpensively. Depending on your tastes, you may also want something like this embroidered tulle. This is a really wide lace, and it doesn't have a whole lot of stretch, but we can still use it to make something really beautiful. You'll want closures for the back. You can use snaps, but I prefer to use hook and eye closures. You might want some ribbon to add to the front, just for a little extra decoration. And last of all, you'll want to have some kind of lace, like this. This is about a 1/2 inch lace that's really good for fine details. The first thing you'll want to do is pick up your doll, or in my case a doll's bust, and figure out how much elastic you need. For the band, you'll want to go all the way around your doll's torso, just under the breasts. You'll want to leave a bit of an overlap in the back, because you want to have room to create a hem, and also for the back to overlap so you can close it. This piece should go all the way around your doll's torso. It's okay if it's a little short, because remember, this is stretchy. It looks like I'll need a piece about that long to make one for this doll. Then you'll want to measure a piece from the top of the doll's breast to the back, where the shoulder strap would intersect with the band in the back. You'll cut 2 shoulder straps and that band that goes around the torso. You want to be sure that the piece of lace you use is big enough to overlap the band at the bottom. If you're working with a doll that's not particularly busty, you might be able to get away with just using a single width piece like this, and making sure that it stretches to cover the doll's chest the way you want. Laylee is a little too big to get on camera, so I'm using this Easter egg as a substitute chest. That's a little weird, but I promise it's the right size. Since she's a really busty doll, and she's also pretty big, I'm going to need to create a cup by sewing this piece. I'll fold the lace on itself, and then pin it together in a curved shape. This creates a cup that will stretch nicely over the doll's chest. So for really big dolls, this is a great option. See, even with the pin, it fits really well. So for me, the first step is sewing those cups. I pin the lace to itself with right sides together and then sew in my curves. Since this lace is so stretchy, it doesn't need to be very precise. I just kind of freehand the curves and make sure that they're uniform between the 2 sides. It's important to backstitch at the center of the cup there so that it won't ravel later. We'll do the other one the same way. While I'm here, I want to take a second to give a big thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. You've all been such a wonderful blessing to me, and I really appreciate how patient you've been in my delayed updates while we're getting ready to move. I'm still hoping that we'll be done within a month or so and everything will be back to normal. But it means a lot to me that everybody's been really understanding of the weird time crunch that I have going on right now. Now it's time to connect the cups to the band. I start by folding the band in half to find the center. I put a pin there, and then I put on the cups. I want the lace cup to overlap this center point just a little bit. Not a lot, maybe about 1/4 inch. Well, I'm not very in focus there. Let's see if I can get my hands back where they belong. There we go, that looks a little better. You want both cups to overlap in the center. That center point is most important, since that's what you'll see the most. To figure out the placement for the side, You'll want to fold the end of your band to the middle. This lets you determine the width of 1/4 of the band. The cup should reach from the center to this point. Make sure you scoot the cups up high enough that the very bottom edge is against the elastic. Feel free to fold, stretch, or rearrange your material to make it fit properly. Eventually, you'll find a place where it all kind of fits nice and snug, and that's exactly where you want it to be. We'll sew this together first, then we'll trim off that extra material at the bottom. To sew the cups in place, I like to use a zigzag stitch on the elastic band. This helps preserve the stretchiness, which is very important. Elastic can be really difficult to work with, so we're going to do things one layer at a time, and you'll want to stop and check the fit a couple times too. Most importantly, just be patient, don't rush yourself, especially if you're not used to working with elastics. There we go, still nice and stretchy. Now we can flip that over and trim off the extra lace. Next, I'll determine how much of this lace I need by pinning the band to one end and then stretching it out as far as I can. I put in a pin to mark my place and then cut the material. I also cut off this ragged top edge just to make it a little bit easier for me later on. You can sew it on as is and then trim this off later, but I find it easier to do this first. It doesn't need to be perfect. Unlike the cups, I'm going to put this on using a long straight stitch. With the embroidered lace underneath, I stretch out the elastic band and sew it together. Oops, I went kind of off track there. That's really easy to do when you're working with elastic. It likes to move around under the needle. So it's important to make sure you firmly grasp the back of the material and help pull it through your machine, while you're pulling the elastic forward to stretch it out. Ooh, going over pins makes me so nervous, but I didn't have a hand to spare. Fortunately, nothing bad happened. I went over it really slowly this time. And now we'll put some decorative lace on top. This will hide the elastic band and make it a little bit prettier. I'll attach this with a zigzag stitch, just to help preserve the extra stretch. The bottom piece gets pulled out as far as I can get it to go, and then the lace gets sewn on top. The nice thing about working in layers like this is that the extra thread and stitches also adds a lot more strength to material that's otherwise really delicate, so it helps ensure that your garment will last. I'll trim off the lace and the threads, and then it's time to do the straps. That's shaping up to be really cute, isn't it? Since I didn't really like the way the ribbon looked on the last one I did, this time I'm going to use lace. I used the same lace that I did in the last step. For pieces like this, it can help to stretch the elastic out as far as it can go, and then pin the lace in place so that it won't shift as you're trying to sew the two layers together. Once it's all neatly pinned, I sew it down using a long straight stitch. Once the elastic is released on the other side, it'll make a really cute ruffle. And since the stitch length is really long, it won't stretch out the elastic while we're sewing. Before we attach the straps, we'll want to hem the back edges. I turn the lace to the inside, down the back, and pin it in place. This gets sewn down with just a simple straight stitch, backstitching at both ends to make sure the seam is strong. We'll do that for both sides. Now we'll add the shoulder straps. It's up to you which way you want them to face. Just make sure you're consistent on both sides. You'll pin the strap at the highest part of the cup on the front. To determine where the strap should go on the side, fold the band in half from the end to the point where it meets with the cup. This is a 1/4 mark, and that's usually good placement, but before you sew this down, you'll want to try this on your doll while it's pinned together. If it still feels a little bit loose, you can tighten the straps, or if it's not sitting well in the front, you can move them farther to the back to help tighten it up. We'll place the straps the same way on this side. Once I try this on lately after I have it pinned, I do end up moving the straps a little bit closer to the back opening. But since every doll is different, fitting is a really important part of this project. Then you'll just use a simple straight stitch to go back and forth a couple times over where the elastic meets the rest of the garment. At this point, the lace is stronger than you think, so that top edge of the cup won't be harmed by having a lot of stitches in it, and it should be plenty strong to withstand the pulling of the shoulder strap. Back and forth to give it extra strength. Now it's time for one more fitting. Since it's not unusual for elastic to stretch out a bit while you're sewing, you might need to make a few final adjustments. The front center of mine stretched a little bit, so I'm going to take it in to help bring the cups closer together, because I think that'll give me a better fit. This is really easy to do though. I'll just fold it in half and add a small dart right there in the middle of the band. Since there's going to be a little decoration there, it won't even show. Never be afraid to take things in or make small adjustments to ensure that it fits your doll just the way you want. Even when you know what you're doing, certain materials like elastic can be really unpredictable. There, see, that's fitting much better. Now I just have to add a few decorations here. I actually even really like the little gather that it creates in the front. That fold where the dart is really cute, and it'll draw a lot of attention to the jewel I plan to put right here. While you have the garment on your doll, it's a good idea to check and see how far the band needs to overlap itself in the back to give you a really good fit. Then you can sew on your hook and eye or snap closures. Once the hooks are on, I finish by decorating the front. I add just a really small ribbon that's been heat sealed so that it won't fray, and then I add a tiny little rhinestone right in the middle. You can decorate yours more, of course, using pearls or beading or a lot more crystals. Some heat-set rhinestones would be really neat to put on the embroidered lace. But I think I already packed mine, so I'm gonna skip those for today. Once it's done, you can put it together with the undies we made last week, and you'll have a really elegant and beautiful outfit. I just love how delicate and feminine this looks. And now I kinda want to make them for all of my girl dolls. Maybe after I move, right? And that's all for today though. Thanks for joining me again. Bye.